Thank you. The next item of business is Stage 3 proceedings for the UEFA European Championship Scotland Bill. In dealing with the amendments, members should have the bill as amended at Stage 2, that is SP Bill 60A, the marshalled list and the groupings of amendments. The division bell will sound and proceedings will be suspended for around 5 minutes if there is a division. The period of voting for the division will be 30 seconds. Members who wish to speak in the debate on the amendment should press the request to speak buttons or enter the letters RTS in the chat function as soon as Amendment 1 is called. Members should now refer to the marshalled list of amendments, and I now turn to Group 1, Intergovernmental Cooperation on Ticket Touting, and I call Amendment 1 in the name of Stephen Kerr. In a group on its own, I call on Stephen Kerr to move and to speak to Amendment 1. Mr Kerr.
Presiding Officer, this is a wonderful Thursday afternoon on what is a momentous day, a very happy day for many of us on this side of the chamber. We get to talk about football, or at least we will eventually get to talk about football once we've talked about some of the aspects of this bill that I hope the Minister might yet reconsider. And I'm grateful for the engagement I've had with the Minister, Richard Lochhead, and for the fully communicative way in which he has piloted this bill. And I'm particularly appreciative of the letter that he sent to the members of the Constitution Europe External Affairs and Culture Committee just earlier this week, I think it was. And I will refer to that in my comments. Presiding Officer, this amendment that I'm proposing in this Group 1 on the subject of intergovernmental cooperation on ticket touting is a modest, procedural and entirely consistent amendment with what I believe the Minister says the bill is trying to achieve. It doesn't reopen the policy debate on ticket touting, it doesn't weaken the offence, it doesn't delay implementation, it simply asks for clarity about work the Minister has already told the committee is underway. And I recognise, as the Minister says in his letter, which if the Chamber is allowing, I will just quote, he said in his letter to the committee, the Minister, it is not within the Scottish Government's gift to report on the actions of other governments. I completely agree with that, and that's not what my amendment seeks to do. And also, he went on to say, nor can we guarantee meaningful progress within the proposed time frame. It's quite a large time frame, it's got to be said. I mean, it's not a narrow time frame, it's a very broad time frame. And I also acknowledge what he says in the letter to be true. Legislative decisions rest with those administrations, meaning primarily the UK government in the first instance. And I accept that and understand that. But it's, but at stage 2, the Minister was clear, and I absolutely accept what he said, that the Scottish Government is in regular discussion with the UK Government, has had communication with the Welsh Government, who don't intend to create their own legislation for Wales only, and the Government of Ireland on ticket touting, including online and cross-border activity. And he also acknowledged that the position across the host nations is uneven as things stand, with different legislative and enforcement approaches in place or being talked about being put in place. And that evidence is exactly why I believe this amendment matters. The touting provisions in the bill apply, of course, it's a Scottish Parliament bill, in Scotland. But the behaviour we're trying to stop is not restricted to Scotland. Online platforms and cross-border sellers do not respect devolved boundaries. If enforcement is to be effective in practice, Parliament is entitled to understand how those risks are being managed. The amendment does not require ministers, does not require the Minister to secure an agreement with other governments. It does not mandate harmonised legislation, and it does not stray beyond devolved competence. Does he wish to give? No. It simply asks the Minister or ministers to set out what steps they have taken to seek cooperation and what has resulted from that engagement. At stage 2, the Minister expressed concern about committing to a report within a fixed timescale if other governments had not reached settled positions. That's what he says in his letter as well. And this amendment directly reflects that concern. The reporting duty is flexible, it's very broad. I think it's realistic. Within 6 months of royal assent, and in any event no later than 18 months before the period of the championship. That aligns with operational planning, not a political deadline. It's intended to be helpful. The Minister also suggested that a post-event review would be sufficient. But with respect, that is too late. That is locking the stable door after the horse is bolted. A review after the event tells us where we went wrong. But I think this report is about identifying any gaps that the Scottish Government ministers have identified that we need to do something more about in this Parliament, and in conjunction with the UK Government and the Parliament. Parliament is being asked to approve new criminal offences and enforcement powers on the basis that intergovernmental engagement is underway. And in those circumstances, it is entirely reasonable for us, as members of the Scottish Parliament, to ask for a factual account of what engagement before the event takes place. And if the engagement is as active as the Minister indicated at stage 2, and I don't doubt it, producing this report will present absolutely no difficulty for the Minister. If there are unresolved issues, it's better that Parliament knows about them from the perspective of the Ministers, while there is still time to act. This is not a political amendment. It is a practical amendment. It strengthens transparency, improves preparedness, and supports the core purpose of the bill. And I hope the Minister will look again at it, considering the reasonable interactions we've had, and perhaps be minded at this stage to accept this helpful amendment.
Thank you, Mr Kerr. And I call the Minister.
Firstly, I'd like to also thank Stephen Kerr for his constructive and enthusiastic engagement that we've had following on from the amendments that he lodged at stage 2, and indeed before that as well. We've met a couple of times. Presiding Officer, we all share concern about ticket touting and its impact on fans, and in particular its propensity to put the price of attending big sporting and other events beyond the reach of the ordinary citizen. So we take this issue very, very seriously. As I set out when Mr Kerr lodged this amendment at stage 2, we are in regular discussions with the governments of the other host nations to ensure that we have a coherent approach to ticket touting. We understand that the Welsh Government and the Northern Irish Executive have no plans to introduce primary legislation. The Republic of Ireland has existing legislation prohibiting ticket touting. The UK Government has indicated that it's still working through how best to deliver UEFA's requirements. So I have to reiterate that it's not for Scottish ministers to report on the actions of other hosting governments. As such, we cannot commit to providing a meaningful report to Parliament within the timeline this amendment sets.
Stephen Kerr.
At the risk of being repetitious, I'm not asking in this amendment for Scottish ministers to report on anything other than the actions that they have taken to interact with the United Kingdom Government and the other governments that are mentioned in the amendment. So I'm not expecting the Minister to do that, but I am expecting, and through this amendment, to ask ministers to report to Parliament on the basis of what interaction there has been. It is a status update that helps us understand where there might be gaps or shortcomings. That is my intention with the bill. It's simply about parliamentary scrutiny.
Minister.
Thank you. And with also not wanting to go down the road of repetition, this is an issue we've been round the Houses on a couple of times, and including at stage 2, and it will be my intention to ensure that Parliament is kept up to date on a regular basis about how these discussions are going. But in terms of placing this into statute through the amendment, the timing of the decisions of the other administrations and the issues around that are not within our gift, and we cannot remedy that. So there is a possibility the UK Government legislates for its jurisdiction beyond the required timeline for reporting in this amendment. Finally, the bill, as amended at stage 2, now includes a requirement to report on the bill's operation, as Stephen Kerr himself referred to earlier, including the ticket touting provisions. So I would suggest that this addresses the underlying intention of Amendment 1, which is to report back to Parliament on the issues arise from the bill. For any significant developments before then, as I said, the Scottish Government will ensure that the Parliament is kept suitably informed and regularly updated, as I've previously undertaken to do. and that is, of course, usual practice, but I'll make an extra special effort to make sure procedures are put in place, given the issues that members have raised. So I would hope this provides Stephen Kerr with sufficient reassurance not to press this amendment, Amendment 1, but should, of course, he do so, I would encourage members to resist it.
Thank you, Minister. And I call on Stephen Kerr to wind up and to press or withdraw Amendment 1.
Well, at no stage would I ever doubt the integrity of the Minister in respect to his intentions, but of course the truth is that he won't be in his role when those moments come, when parliamentary updates are required. In fact, none of us really know where we will be. But I think it's important, well, indeed, and I see the Minister for Parliamentary Business. He's another one that will not be here either. Some of us hope to be here. But I think the whole point of putting this on the face of the bill is to ensure that there is no slippage in the same level of ministerial interest that Richard Lochhead has shown. And therefore, on this occasion, I am going to press this amendment.
Thank you, Mr Kerr. The question is, does Amendment 1 be agreed to? Are we all agreed?
No.
The Parliament is not agreed. There will be a division, as this is the first division of the Stage 3. I suspend for around 5 minutes to allow members to access the digital voting system.